Hi everyone and welcome to another Destiny Movie Night Hangout. Tonight we are going to discuss a movie called Good Will Hunting, and before we start I would like to remind you that during the session you can ask your questions or send us your comments using the Q&A functionality on this Google Live page. With us we have two guests. We have Reginald from the Netherlands. Hi Reginald.
Hello. Hi.
Hello. And we have Maya, who is currently based in California. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm in California. Hi everybody.
So, for those who haven't watched this movie yet, Good Will Hunting tells a story about this guy. His name is Will, and he's a genius in a South Boston neighborhood. However, he's those kind of genius that are hidden away, and he's actually discovered by this math professor that tries then to help him assisting into turning his life around and becoming a famous or at least a recognized genius in Harvard. This will happen with the assistance of Sean, who together, Will and Sean, will going to start a journey of discovering themselves and going through what Will has been hiding throughout his life. Which, I mean, I hope you can watch the movie, but the main focus on tonight's hangout is actually how we suppress our potential. How much of us is currently being held back just because we believe in our fears, and we are going to discuss how is that we become prisoners of our own minds and how much we are missing of ourselves. And our guests will also share with us solutions that they have applied or that they can discuss through what they have been living this far about going through and transcending fears or any other points that are not assisting in their lives so that we can finally express ourselves freely. So guys, now that I just went through the synopsis, my first question is, what in this movie could you relate the most with your own process and why? So Reginald, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Well, the thing that I actually mostly could relate to is, of course, the point of suppression in the movie, where you see all the specific patterns that people are walking through in their lives, and eventually they come to that point where they know that they can be something more, but something is holding them back, and that's what I could relate best to. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. And Maya, what was in this movie why did you watch it so many times, for example?
Well, I watched it years ago a few times, and then I watched it recently just now. And well, and at the moment looking at it in the last time, I relate to the point of how he just is playing very small, and he's not, in a way, accepting that this genius, this gift that he has, is something that is unique, and he can contribute and give so much to his environment and surroundings by owning in his gift and sharing it. So, and very often I've been told, and I'm sure many of us, that, oh, you're so good at this and that, and there's aspects of me that I think if I would own more the potential of them, I could live them and express them and contribute them more rather than playing small, you know?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think all of us can relate to that. One question that I have is, you notice in the movie, Will was constantly running away. He couldn't stand relationships for too long, and he was always in escape mode, as we see. He's also, even the fights that he was getting himself into. What was he was running away from? Reginald, what is your perspective of that?
Yeah, you would say in first instance that he's just scared, but What I know from my personal experience is that you are actually running away from yourself. You know, it's like the fear and the things that you hold back in within you, that you suppress so much, that you know that if you change, those things will come up and you will have to face them. And you can definitely see this in Will, where he eventually has to talk with someone and yeah, will break down, for instance. And you will see within that is always the point within us, that we are so scared of ourselves, of what we are feeling or experiencing or thinking, that we just play this hide and seek personality, just for the sake of protecting ourselves, you know, keeping ourselves safe.
And when you say protecting yourselves, is that yourself or is it your mind? What are we protecting ourselves from?
It's not so. It's not so that you're really protecting yourself physically, you know. But yeah, it's our mind, you know. We don't want to actually see what's going on within us. We have so much judgments against or towards something that we live. And that's also one of the most emotional points that I found within this movie. Um, that you that you actually see that when you come across that point, that you judge so much, yeah, it's can be life changing, for the better or for the worse, and for Will then for the better.
Yes, very cool point. I can definitely relate. And in the movie, it was interesting to see that even when he was meeting Sean in the first place, as soon as he touched upon the topic of his wife, he kind of said to him, "Please leave." So it was actually sometimes when people talk about those points that are the most like almost protected, that our mind wants to protect, we run away. We don't want even to go there.
Yeah.
Maya, what from your experience, have you um, how have you dealt with this point? Especially, um, can you give us an example of how you have held yourself back in regards to any fears or any self-judgments that you have of yourself?
Definitely. Well, specifically, just in relation to the movie, the way I see it is that, very much like Reginald said, he's running away from himself, and it comes up in his relationships where it was expressed at some point that, you know, if she'll know him, she'll leave. In the specific relationship he has with, I forget her name, the lady. So the judgment is so deep where he needs to hide himself because he knows that if he ever opens up, then nobody will stick around. And I've definitely experienced that in myself, where there's this deep fear that if I allow myself to be myself and really express the whole range of who I am, then nobody's going to stick around. It's like it's like you'll peel all the layers off, and then because of all the judgment, there's a fear that you're going to chase everybody away.
Yes, and also as we saw in the movie, sometimes it's important, or actually often is important to have this environment so we can actually open ourselves with another person that is willing to listen to us and to hear what we have to say, right? So there's also this point of commitment from another that is willing to help. And sometimes we don't find those people, and we're not educated to think that we can actually trust ourselves to get to know ourselves, and that we can use tools such as writing, such as even speaking to ourselves in a very supportive way, so we can kind of organize our thoughts. Can you relate to that?
Yeah, very much. And in the movie specifically, like the friend, for instance, that he had, and the therapist, they were both supporting him in a way that they wanted the best for him, and they wanted him to be. They saw this unrealized potential that he was not living, and they wanted him to reach it, and he really could be himself with them, and they would support him and accept him. And something that I really like in Destiny, for instance, is that we have the buddy system. So very often I've had situations where something comes up, and then there's someone, or just in relationships in general in the group, but you can always, or in the forum, you can always ask someone for support, and we have a very what I find very different than other relationships. Then there's many relationships that are not really supportive. Very many relationships that have, it's like a misunderstanding. There's a lot of agendas going on, and there's a lot of expecting you to stay the same or expecting you to change in a specific direction, rather than actually supporting you to, and be yourself, really, your true self, not the mind self.
Yes, especially when we meet new people, there's this tendency to want to show off or to want to appear something that we're not. For example, Will, when he introduced himself, then after a while he was saying that he had this amount of brothers, and he actually didn't want to bring his girlfriend to his place because that will show some of his past. And how often, like, we actually define ourselves so much based on our past that we don't give a chance to other people to get to know us as from who we are, and whereby we can actually say, this is what my life has been, but that doesn't define me. So, Reginald, I wanted to ask you, how have you walked these points of facing your past in order to not allow this past experience to hold yourself back and for you to become a prisoner of your mind?
Yeah, that's a tough question, because every point that you walk, you will actually see that there is a point of fear, and that there is something something happened in your past that contributed to keep that fear in place. So through writing, I have done a lot of looking into those points, very introspective, to see, okay, what are the contributing points to this thing that I experience, or where I feel like I'm holding myself back. And yeah, to practically say what I have walked through as a fear, it would be also this point of opening yourself up with new people, because you think you are somebody based on how you've been with friends, but then it could be so that they are not seeing you like that. It's just how you see yourself, because if you have not done really great in school, for instance, you can hold it towards yourself, judge yourself for that. But new people, they don't know you, and they don't see you as you see yourself. So that was quite a challenging point to accept, just that people can think differently of me, maybe even better than I think of myself, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very, very interesting point, Reginald, because when we meet another person, we're bringing this kind of baggage of information about ourselves, and how our own self-judgments can blind us, in order, like, we actually then project our self-judgment towards another, and we're going to think that that's what happens, that's what the other person thinks of us. And this reminds me in the movie, when his girlfriend was trying to help him, and she was just saying that she didn't care about how many brothers he had, and that she would like him and love him unconditionally, as in the movie, he actually was still thinking that he was still projecting the judgment and all the doubts that he had about himself. So it's interesting. And now, Maya, for example, so was there any other tools that, well, you talked about your buddies, but is there anything else that you would like to tell the audience in terms of facing this point, especially when meeting new people? Have you faced that point, and have you changed anything within you regarding that?
With meeting new people in particular, I don't recall any specific thing with meeting new people. I've always been kind of comfortable with meeting new people, but there are like a list of self-beliefs that I actually wrote down, a list one time of self-judgment and self-beliefs, And I just started to investigate every one of them. I have not yet finished the entire list. But just going through that and actually starting to see, because what I find is that there's a specific belief that I kind of define myself as, and then I bring memories of all the proof that make it so. And at the same time, I'm not acknowledging all the other facts that can prove the opposite. It's like I choose selectively the memories that I want to kind of tie in together to the self-belief, and I move away actual facts that also went on that contradict it. And then I create this image in myself, but it's not based on actual reality. It's based on picking and choosing in order to form a belief based on maybe some experience or so. What I found in that specific process is what I would do is try to kind of prove myself wrong. So I would, if I have a specific self-belief, and this is besides that, you know, you can walk the self-forgiveness and all of that, but just in order to open the point for me. So if I see a self-belief, then I start to kind of actually see the reality of it. So start bringing in kind of facts and proofs for both sides. And then it just helps me to open up the point and to be more grounded rather than just kind of this cloud of idea.
Yeah, because otherwise we are in this cycle of thoughts. Like, we have to justify our thoughts by bringing memories that we base ourselves on, and then it's a big challenge to get out of that cycle and to decide, no, this is not the best for me. So let me actually prove myself that this self-judgment is not real, and I'm going to do things differently. And sometimes we're already doing it, but it's just this continuous self-thinking that can be very destructive in our reality. And then obviously we're not going to be open for others. And one thing that I noticed while you guys were speaking, it happens to me as well, is like once you start writing about a point or even discussing a point with another, have you noticed how you start seeing your reality differently? Meaning there is something in another that you haven't noticed before, but because you have kind of released a point within you, because you have digged a little bit and you've kind of realized, oh, maybe this judgment is not well, it's not real, but it's not that intense in a way that it's blinding me. So you start seeing your reality differently. Have you noticed this happening? Reginald, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. One of the things that I've actually experienced a lot within people is that they tend to open up towards me, but it's also vice versa, where I tend to open up myself more when I talk to them. And the reason what I found within that point is actually that in that point I just stand still, you know. I allow myself to open up a lot more points than I'm only doing when I would be alone within my mind. And yeah, to support myself, I use writing for that, to open things more. But if you're just sticking within that thinking process, things are only going like just being in a circle. And when you're there with a person, somehow you know that, okay, this is this is not actually true what I'm thinking, but yeah, and if I will express that, they know it's just me lying towards myself. So I'd rather be self-honest and speak more about myself. And what I found actually in that is that there are a lot of points that they can contribute to your own process, because by being honest, you're actually taking already the first step to become more responsible for what's going on within you. And when you're alone, you can take the responsibility of writing and getting to know yourself more, or actually through speaking. And that's why these social interactions that we have with people can be so valuable and scary from that perspective.
And it's also about leaving our comfort zone. Because, like, I mean, that's also a big point in movies, that the reason why he didn't want to leave this neighborhood was because he already knew how it worked. He was a survivor in there, and he wasn't even challenging himself. And I wanted to ask you, well, both of you, but let's start with Maya. Can you give us an example of something in your life that you can see that if you had not have the courage to go through a point that, like, a challenge, how much you have missed about yourself? Maybe you haven't even moved to a new city, or you simply haven't done something that in the end it was very supportive to you. Can you talk us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, there's two aspects. So one of them is just recently I moved to a new country and I started a business, and just allowing myself to step totally out of my comfort zone and trying something completely new. And there's so many challenges along the way, and there's so many falls along the way, and it's also easy to kind of being sucked into the fall. But every time you fall and you get up, it's like there's a new learning process, and there's a lot to be gained from allowing yourself to try something new and fall and get up and fall and get up. And it's interesting, I don't remember that I had like courage to do it. It just kind of did it, and I realized in retrospect that I needed some courage to do it. But more specifically in relationship, I see it very often where you can either speak your honest self, you can either be yourself, or you can kind of hide the truth in relationships, and there's always a price to pay. So I feel like you can only gain true intimacy with someone if you have the courage to peel off the layers and start speaking honestly. And that's the only way also to discover yourself. Like Janelle said, myself as well. When I speak to other people, I very often then hear myself, just like in writing. Like, you have to put it out there in order to know how I stand at that point. So, yeah, so and if you don't have the courage to even put it out there, whether it's in writing or in speaking, then you're not going to be able to see yourself, and the other person won't be able to see yourself, and then it's like we're isolating ourselves within ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah.
Sorry, go for it.
No, that's it.
Okay. Another point is that in the movie, and Reginald, I want to have your perspective on this. Like, you know, this idea that we have that the genius, like, this guy was a genius, and it was because he could solve these very complex math problems and equations, etc. But in reality, as we noticed by walking our lives and our process and discovering ourselves, we're not talking only about this kind of intelligence, which are the ones recognized in the system, and a lot of people want to do that. They want to be that, and then we actually start judging ourselves as, oh, I'm not as intelligent as this guy. But in fact, what we're talking about here is our potential as being ourselves. So what have we been missing about our own selves, about what life is, by being stuck in judgments and guilt and all of this, and the shame that takes over?
Well, the thing actually in these movies is that you know, things are really extreme. Like, for instance, Will, he's like a genius. Well, how many people are like that? So he's actually portrayed in this movie like some kind of superhero, something that everybody wants to be and everybody really looks up to. But in reality, there are only a handful of those people. And for me, for instance, you know, I'm good at certain things and I'm really bad at certain things. And because we just look for those extremes that people really admire, you're thinking like, okay, I'm not that much, or I cannot do that, and you're just stuck in that comparison of you're not something that everybody wants to be. You're not that winner, and everybody here in a society actually only looks up to the handful of people, the people who are remembered in history. And yeah, but to be honest, there's only a handful of people within that, but there are so much more people, and yeah, maybe you are just one of those people whose name will not be remembered, and like for instance me in this point. So um, I would say that what we actually miss is that we do not accept who we really are. We just are looking up to people and not really accepting, okay, what can I contribute? Who am I? Who can I be within this life? You know, we are always trying to be so much more than maybe what we are capable of, and because we are thinking like, okay, I cannot be like that person, then well, I just rather be nothing because I will never be respected as that. But in the meanwhile, you do not even respect yourself because you're not getting everything out of yourself. You're not even putting your ass on the line. You're not trying even to get out of your comfort zones and become more. And I think that is really one of the points that we as people are lacking self-confidence. It's not because we cannot do something, but because the things that we can do, we are not doing. I think that point is one of the things that I personally had to deal with because, yeah, of course, who don't want to be exceptional in something? But you have to face the truth. You may be exceptional in some things, but maybe even things that people do not even admire, but you are really good at it. But that doesn't make you who you are. If you do not accept yourself as, okay, this is all that I can do, and this is what I can do well, then so be it. If you can be yourself, that's everything that you want to be, right? That's, at least for me, is the point that I want to express myself. I want to feel comfortable with who I am, and if I see points where I can challenge myself in, I will do that just naturally because I like to be me and see what I'm capable of, and not holding myself back because I see that I will never be Superman or Einstein.
I can tell you that you're not going to be Superman, because but that's absolutely fine, and that's exactly it. I mean, the examples you provided were perfect. I'm not going to add anything to it because you said everything. And one thing that I'm actually going to say is that I realized that for some reason the app of the questions of this live hangout apparently is not working. So I just received a notification saying that if viewers want to ask a question, you have to click on the cube icon next to the question mark at the top of the window. So yes, so basically, like, for some reason the app functionality, the questions and answers app is not showing. So please see if you can still send us some questions during this session, so that we can answer to you and discuss a little bit further. But before we receive any questions, it was, I mean, what you were saying, Reginald, I could definitely resonate with, and I can see how much of us we actually separate ourselves from ourselves because we want to be this something more. We want to we compare ourselves to others, and we don't even embrace or we see what we have here. And the other point is, we actually don't ask ourselves questions such as, what do I want from my life? Who am I? Who do I want to become? And the fact that we don't bring these points to ourselves, and we believe that if we are something different, that's going to solve our problems, when in fact we're just postponing this, and we're finding excuses and justifications to just don't look at our own selves. Maya, do you want to add anything to it? And yeah, give us your perspective.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you guys are saying, specifically that superhero view that Reginald was mentioning, where Will in the movie is portrayed as this spectacular genius, right? But and we live in society that values specific things more than others, and if you're good at them, then you're considered valuable. But really, if each of us would find, you were saying like we're separated from ourselves, if we would connect back to ourselves and be able to express ourselves fully, then we each have a very, very unique expression. And in fact, we each have like superpowers of our own that are like you said earlier, and we're good at some things that we even take for granted. Kind of like in the movie, he was like, whatever, I can do it in a second. I take it for granted. And we very often, the stuff that comes naturally to us, we take for granted, and we're focusing on the stuff that we don't do very well, or that we judge ourselves for not doing very well. And we might also be very skilled at it, but there might be a learning curve that you just need to, you know, learn how to do something, and then you can be great at it. But there's so much self-judgment and comparison that we don't even allow ourselves to, like you said, ask ourselves, wait, who am I? What do I like to do? What am I good at? How can I contribute? Where's my passion? Like what comes easy to me? Like just ask ourselves these questions so we can start exploring that. So we're all like in our 20s, in our 30s, in our 40s, whatever, and it's like we've never discovered who we are and what our unique contribution to this society is. So we end up being a bunch of halves and quarters of ourselves, and I think it shows. I mean, I think reality would benefit if we would all learn who we are and learn to express ourselves without the judgment and without the shame and without trying to be someone else. That doesn't even make sense. That other person is that other person. We don't need another one of them. We need you, we need me. So
Yeah, and actually, Will, the guy was a genius, and even he didn't know what he wanted. So, I mean, it's not going to be that kind of intelligence that is going to, it may assist in certain cases, but it's not going to be our savior if we were waiting for any. We actually have a questions from Marlon, and thanks, Marlon, for going through the process of finding the Q&A button. This will be fixed next time. And the question from Marlon Vargas del Razo is, how have you guys supported yourselves to develop your potential? How did you get to find it? So, Reginald, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, that's a really difficult question because that would imply that I've already found it. I'm still in the process of getting to learn all the things that I really can do and what I'm great at and what I can, for instance, do for like in the job. I know that I'm great at certain points and not so great in other points. Though I'm more looking now in my stage like, okay, how can I put all these things that I know about myself, what things can I still develop, and how can I put that then into like a job perspective, should I go back to school or in a specific field? That's still what I'm trying to find out, because yeah, some people might say like, oh, you're already quite old, well, how can you not know that? But that's not how we've been raised. We have not been asked ourselves like, okay, what am I good at and what should I really do? What would support me in the long run? We have only been so focused about, okay, I'm only good at performing in this and I could only do that. But when you start this process of getting to know yourself, you will see that there's so much more of you that you want to express and that you might also need to express to fulfill yourself. So to say that I have found it, no, that's not really the case. But I still see that I can learn so much from a lot of other points, and through that will, like clay, will get more and will mold myself in a specific way that I'm comfortable with and that I can contribute to a lot of other people's lives, and most definitely my own life.
Absolutely. Maya, do you want to share like an answer to Marlon? How are you doing it?
And very much like Regiland, I'm not yet living my true potential. But there's a specific thing that I try to do is when I see other people and I have this admiration towards them, um, I now recognize, I didn't know this before, but I now recognize that these are things that I have in me as well that I'm not living. So it's like there's a choice in those places to either go into comparison and think of me as less than them and they're so special or unique, or if I see that point of, it's like this point of attraction, then to take it as a learning potential for me and see how I can explore that within me. So that's been something that I focus on and noticing, and if it's the comparison or that admiration, and then taking it as a learning process rather than being stuck in that judgment and comparison. And so that's something that I do.
That's a very cool and practical example. I can relate to that. And the importance of also, as Marlon did, is to ask the question, how did you do that? Sometimes we see people that do things so easily or so fast, and we can ask the question. And the worst thing that will happen is the person saying, no, I don't want to answer that. But that I don't think it's going to happen. Especially, and you can actually, as you were saying, Maya, there's the forum, the Destiny forum. There's so much support with the DIP Light course. So I would say that those are tools to start walking this process. And this is a journey where we are walking finding out our potential and also creating our potential. And that is my answer to the question, is that I noticed within me that there was a lot of fear, and that was what's holding myself back, and it still happens. So what I do is to identify the fear, and then I challenge myself to walk through it, meaning how can I change my relationship to this? Either it can be a job situation, it can be a relationship, it can be any action that I'm afraid of. And once I walk it, once I commit myself to walk that decision of changing that specific pattern, that is the moment where I can say that I am achieving something that otherwise I wouldn't do. So I am kind of unleashing my potential in that specific example, and then step by step we're going to get there in a point of self-realization and complete self-honesty. Well, we have about 2 minutes before the end of the hangout, so and we haven't received more questions at the moment. But one thing that I wanted to ask you, just to finalize very quickly, is how are you currently motivating yourselves to keep walking your process and unleashing your potential?
Okay, I will go first then. I am not saying like, okay, I'm really have such of as a motivation, you know, like an energy of I want. And what I actually see is that there are a lot of points that I'm reacting to, and I see that that is not who I want to be. And from that, I have this natural drive of correcting myself and seeing that yeah, that is not working. And if I'm keep doing that, I will never be more than what I currently am. So it's not like a real motivation as in, okay, I must have this, and there's a drive within me, emotion within me. No, it's just like I want to correct myself. It's like really natural to, when there's a problem, you want to solve it. There are not much people who actually seeing a problem and then saying like, okay, that's it, and just standing there. No, people want to do something, and that's if you want to call that a drive or a motivation, then that's it. Otherwise, I'd say it's a natural part of ourselves that we want to correct ourselves and want to become the best thing that we can be in our lives. And if that's not really up to notch or within your thinking, like not up to notch, you always seek new ways to express yourself, or you can stand still and try to power play people and use your knowledge and information like Will at a certain point where he's going with all these things out of the books, where he tries to actually justify his point of standing still. And that's what people can do, or they can acknowledge that they want to correct themselves and acknowledge that they can be more, and yeah, just make way, pave the way, write, investigate. That's how I do it. Yeah.
Cool. Maya, do you want to finalize?
Yeah, I just going to say the point of motivation, it's sometimes very challenging to find that inner drive and inner movement and actually do what needs to be done. But it's like just remembering, I mean, it's like seeing how life is without it. It's kind of, I mean, it's like you can either be drawn kind of back and forth with these emotions and fears, and knowing that you're limiting yourself, and knowing that you can be so much more. It's almost sad to see once you know it. It's like looking at. I mean, it always helps me to look at a child when it's hard for me to see it in myself. So I mean, imagine seeing a child that doesn't believe in themselves. They're like 3 years old and they already think that they can't do this and this, instead of, I mean, how much you would want them to move and be and, you know, express themselves and learn. So that same potential that the child has, that you would want them to move, is the same thing you want for yourself. And once you see that, it's like, you know, you're kind of, what am I going to do? Then you have to go ahead and do it. And it's just one step at a time and one day at a time. And like Reginald said, you know, you investigate and you look and you take, and then you fall again, and then you get back out.
Cool, nice examples. Indeed, absolutely. Self-responsibility is key if we want to change and become a better version of ourselves. And that's exactly what we've been doing with the Desteni I process. And just before we finish the hangout tonight, I want to thank you guys for being here tonight and for participating into sorting yourselves out wherever you are in the world. That's really important. And I also want to thank you everyone for watching us, and I want to invite you next week. We're going to have Anna Briggs Thompson hosting another DIP Light hangout live, and the topic that she's covering now is the family series, and they will cover the topic of wanting to be perfect for everyone. So it's going to be an awesome session, and please subscribe our channel and also join our Facebook group so you are always up to date of the things that we are doing. So thank you everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.
Bye.
Bye guys.